Thank you for being here. This is our 5th Ignite. It's exciting to see how this has grown over the years. Our next Ignite is going to be October 16th, and we know that there are a lot of people in the audience tonight that are considering doing an Ignite, and the people next to you, please feel free to urge them on. It's actually kind of fun. We'll be talking about it a little bit later. We have 5 great speeches for you tonight. There is a sign-up list over on the barrel in case you're interested in getting any further information. You're not committing yourself by signing up to that list. We would like to thank 3 Sheeps very much. They've been generous to us. Thank you. They have great beer. They've even taken a wine drinker like me and got me to start drinking beer, so that's pretty good. I figure if I live in Wisconsin, it's kind of a requirement, so I better get to work. So the Ignite Committee has been working very hard to get people here. I'll introduce them in a little while. But let's begin with this. How does a person cope with the fact that their name is always mispronounced? Always mispronounced. She has some funny stories to tell you about that. Please welcome our first speaker, Nia Yang.
You know, I've always wanted my name in lights with an adoring crowd in front of me. Thank you. Okay, that was a lie, not really. But if I were to have a one name like Beyonce or Adele or Madonna, that'd be great because it would help people to pronounce my name. Like our friend Danny Zuko mispronounced my best friend's name, Adele Dazeem, way back at the Oscars. Did you guys know that I was the original Adele Dazeem before he even thought about offending my best friend Adina? It's the H. People see the H in my name and they don't know what to do with it. Is it Haya, Nahaya, Nahia, Hia? Some people just say, you know what, I'm not even gonna try pronouncing it, and they just give up, and then I have to tell them how to pronounce it. It gets a little aggravating after a while. But there are a couple of famous Nias. You guys all know Nia Vidalos from My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. There's also the actress Nia Long. But you see what they have that, though I have that they don't have, it's that H. Something about that H keeps throwing people off. It's a little nerve-wracking. Like at my college graduation, my maiden name is Chang, so Nia Chang. I'm wondering how they're gonna butcher it as I go up to get my diploma. I'm waiting, and then he goes, Nia, silent yay, and then he says, Ching. Of course, he butchers the easier one of the two. What's a person to do, right? So that's the story of my life. Screw up my name, get used to it, but not really. Because then when I'm at work, I used to be the GM at the press. One time I had to go to Green Bay for some training for some of our reporters, and I went up along with them. It was time for lunch, and we broke for lunch. I went out to lunch with some of my buddies from our Wausau sister paper. I ended up going to one of these hip delis that they want your first name, so when your order is ready, they call it out in front of everybody so you know it's yours. I was with my buddies. I got a cup of soup, waiting for them to call my name. They call Pete, pretty easy. Suzanne, pretty easy. I see the girl looking at the slip, see her do a double take. I'm thinking, oh great, is it Naya, Hanaya, Naya? What's it gonna be? She looks up, cup of soup. WTF. I've gone from being called so many different things, even some pretty bad names when I was at the press, to being called a cup of soup. That's probably the most descriptive thing I've ever been called, period. So, now that I've got my name and got your attention, I just want to say that I've always wanted my name to be different. When I was growing up in the 80s, it was always butchered. My parents, you know, I wasn't born here. I was born in a refugee camp, came over when I was just a newborn. So I've got a pretty traditional name. I'm jealous that my younger 2 siblings, they were born here. Their names are Jeff and Lisa. And here I am with my pigtails. But my parents did my parents did give me a meaningful name. My name means either money or silver. My sister's name means gold, so they had high hopes for us. They just didn't realize how much abuse it would take as we were growing up trying to get the American dream. So when I had my first daughter, I vowed to give her an easy name, Ella. Can't mess it up. Though someone did say to me, why are you, a Christian, naming your daughter Allah? True story. I couldn't have made that one up. And then there's Nora. I gave her the H as a tribute to Nora Jones. That H, it still haunts us. Teachers are still spelling it wrong and incorrectly, and coaches, and drives her nuts too. We always have to correct them. And then my youngest and only son, Ian. Pretty easy. Except even he wondered when he was just a preschooler, why doesn't my name start with an E if it's pronounced Ian? So what am I to do? I don't even know. What does it even mean to have my name butchered so many different ways? What's in a name? I don't know, other than my identity. And honestly, this is my Seinfeld speech. That's all I got. All I know is that my life could be made a little bit easier if people would stop mispronouncing it. Though I know it is hard, I will concede that. It's easy to mispronounce, it's easy to butcher, I get that. So what can I do? All I know is that now when people ask for my name, and I don't need to give my credit card over, they just need to write my name on the Gap fitting room, and they want to write my name rather than me trying to spell it 5 different ways, order a pizza over the phone, order a sandwich. What's your name so we can call it out in front of the whole crowd? All you can do, all I tell them is, I'm not lying, true story, Ella. Just call me Ella. They can't mess that one up when they're writing it down on pizza order. Thank you.
Thank you, Cup of Soup. While Nia's name may get butchered once in a while, Nia, we have a very soft spot in our hearts for Nia. Nia is on the committee that helps put together all of these Ignites. She's the one that creates all of the Facebook posts and everything like that. So thank you, Nia, for everything that you do for us. While we're talking about the committee, these people can help you a lot. Ryan here is on our committee. Carolyn is on our committee if you want to stand up. Lisa is on our committee. Where's Lisa? Lisa's right here. Who else is on our committee? Jose is on our committee. So any of these people would be glad to help you. They would be glad to coach you as well as we get going. Our next speaker is a Brit. He's a professor of history at Lakeland, one of my colleagues. He is an author and a musician, and he will tell you how a chance phone call took him to Africa and changed his life forever. Please welcome Rick Dodson.
Hi, everybody. Oh, we got 5 minutes flat here, so we have to time everything. Okay, thank you, Charlie, and thank you, everybody. My name is Rick. Can you hear me okay? Okay, this is the story of how a young plumber from England became a professor after going to Africa, and the moral of this story is just to say yes. This is young Richard Frederick Dodgson, born in 1961, middle-class family, promising a scholarly career interrupted by an interest in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Dropped out of school early, got married young, played music. This is my part of the world, up in the northwest of England, around Manchester. I was born in the south of Manchester, in Cheshire, but I lived most of my time in the middle of Lancashire in a place called Lee, or maybe you've heard of the road to Wigan Pier, industrial coal country. This is me a bit later in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Age 27, buying my favorite Martin guitar. I am depressed. My marriage has collapsed. I have quit my job and I have run away to America to console myself, to hang out with friends. Back in the UK, I'm licking my wounds, not working, hanging out at the youth club where I am using their recording studio. They have an early computer and a dark room where I am teaching myself to develop photos. The phone rings, I pick it up. It's a youth worker called Chris. Do you have a passport, she asked. Yes, I said. Do you want to go to Africa? Yes, I said. Okay, we leave in 5 weeks. You need to get some inoculations, she said. So the next 5 weeks, I got injected and met a bunch of people, and 5 weeks later I was in a bus with some youths and some youth workers going to Africa. And bam, overnight, there I was in Africa. This is me with hair, if you can believe it. Everywhere I went, kids followed me around. The sky seemed bigger, the air seemed heavier, the stars seemed more numerous, and out of my window I could see Mount Kilimanjaro. Do you know the story of this? And I'll tell you quickly. In the 1870s, when the British and the Germans were dividing up East Africa, the German Kaiser Wilhelm noticed that he didn't have any snow-capped mountains on his side of the border. So he contacted his cousin, Queen Victoria of England, to complain, and so she redrew the map so that Mount Kilimanjaro was in German Tanganyika rather than British Kenya. So some things were more familiar. Colonialism left the Christian religion in this village, although there was also a witch doctor. The kids played soccer out in the field in the middle of the village, although the ball was made out of rags all close tied together. The girls amazingly sang a version of Ring Around the Roses, an old English song, under the shade of the trees as the sun went down every night. So this was my introduction to Africa. The curriculum in the school was English, and I was using my new photo skills, and all these photos are things I've developed, and took myself of what I could see in Africa. Some things were not so familiar. Some things were distinctly American. Deep in the jungle on a hike in Mount Kilimanjaro, we encountered this little cafeteria selling Sprite and playing Western pop music. Wham is one thing I remember listening to in Africa. Also, if you wanted to walk the 17 miles down to the local city, you could go and see Rambo and learn about American foreign policy. Some things were noticeably different. Life was simpler and more communal and more sharing and, frankly, more fun. Here you can see some kids playing on a bicycle that they made themselves just out of wood, and you would see this all the time. Meals were communal. This is lunchtime in the local school. They just brought out a big plate of maize and some green beans, and everybody just piled in and helped themselves. That was different. What else was different? This is a little different. These are the outhouses. And you'll see that they're divided by age and not gender. That's different. Something else that I never quite got used to is that men hold hands with their friends. So here is me holding hands with my friend Joseph, who helped me take some of these photographs. The experience left me fascinated with how cultures overlap and how histories overlap and how cultures evolve. And so when I got back to the UK, there's me, a young undergraduate. I applied to go to university and got accepted to study social anthropology and American studies. Yes, I'm studying you right now. And many of my photos got turned into a booklet. I bought some up. Would you hold that up, Charlie? It's right in front of you. We can pass these around. My photos got turned into an educational booklet by Oxfam to help young English kids learn out what it's like to live in a village in Africa. So that's how a chance phone call changed my life and turned me from a plumber into an academic professor who still wants to be a rock star. Thank you very much.
And he has the coolest facial hair at Lakeland. Rick and I actually started the same year, so we become good buds over the years. So thank you, Rick. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, do one thing every day that scares you a little. So if any of you are thinking of doing something like this and then thinking, you can do it. It's actually kind of fun. Everybody that's on the committee, by the end of today, everyone that's on the committee will have done it. A lot of people that have in the community have gotten up here. Just take a chance. Try it. We'll help you out. It involves telling a story. It's not like every single thing that you say has to be connected to the slides that are showing. The slides can run in the background. You pick 20 slides. One of the things that makes it cool is they change every 15 seconds, not on your command, but they just change automatically. So what happens is that in practicing this, you just have to sort of keep up with the ball, and it becomes really fun. And it's not like all of you are out here criticizing everybody and critiquing everybody. Thanks to James and all the staff here. We have a little beer to assuage that just a little bit. But it's actually kind of fun. The slides change every 15 seconds, and you simply tell a story. So we have a sign-up list over there on the barrel where we have a donation bucket, and we're all glad to be able to help you. Ignite started in 2006 in Seattle. And now they're not only all over this country. Some cities, obviously places like New York and LA, have more than one, but there are a number of them throughout the world as well. And they all have, if you go to ignitetalks.io, ignitetalks.io, you can find out other information. There are thousands of Ignite Talks. I like to say it's sort of a cross between karaoke and Toastmasters. So it's just a little more relaxed version of TED Talks, if you will. Our next speaker describes the experience of playing a supporting role to her three brothers' journey as young adults on the autism spectrum. Please welcome Leah Becca Ulatowski.
I want to tell you my story, but in order to tell you my story, I have to tell you the story of my three brothers, all of whom are on the autism spectrum. Autism is a developmental disorder that has a wide range of symptoms, from speech delays to learning disabilities to hypersensitivity to touch and sound to aggression. In this picture, my brother Jacob had just gotten a new bed in the mail, and we said, "Hey Jacob, there's your bed." And so he got a pillow and blanket and took a nap right on the box. Just one example of their very literal understanding of things. My brother Jared is 25, Timmy is 17, and Jacob is 16. Even their individual cases differ, but they all have a degree of speech delay, learning disability, and aggression. My childhood was filled with a lot of uncertainty. My parents almost went bankrupt, searching for a miracle cure for my oldest brother. His symptoms were very unmanageable at that point, particularly his aggression, and we just did not know what to do. So we became homebodies. We were homeschooled. We hardly ever went out, and if we did go out, there were very intense reactions from people, dirty looks, got kicked out of a couple of restaurants, that kind of thing. And then young adulthood brought about some of its own anxieties. I started worrying about what happens when my parents die, what happens to the boys. I was shouldering so much stress and responsibility for my family at that time that I had trouble relating to peers my age. But with the years also came a degree of acceptance and manageability for my family. We started consulting therapists for different therapies, doctors for different medications to help curb the boys' symptoms as opposed to searching for miracle cures. And it seemed like things were getting better. But then my mother passed away, very suddenly, about a year and a half ago, from brain aneurysm. And beyond just the grief and the shock of that situation, she was the boys' full-time caretaker. So suddenly we were faced with very difficult caretaking decisions that we didn't think were going to come for years down the road. And I had to live with the fact that I decided not to be the boys' full-time caretaker. But I was still shouldering a lot of responsibility for them at that point. My dad did okay. He remarried. He retired. He was sort of managing the boys' caretaking plan. But I was really struggling. One of my brothers had developed a biting habit, and I had bites all along my arms. And somebody in a college class had made a comment that it looked gross. And I just wanted to attack that person. I felt very isolated at that point in my life. I had also developed some OCD tendencies from taking care of the boys because you leave a bottle of bleach out one time while you're cleaning and they drink it and that's just it. So I got into the habit of checking and rechecking and checking again. But I know that even that attention to detail has helped shape me. I've become an editor. I've become a writer. You kind of need those traits to do that. I know that from taking care of these beautiful boys, I have developed a degree of compassion and patience, a heart for awareness that I don't think I otherwise would have. And living in Sheboygan, I've really come into my own. I've had some really excellent opportunities, met some really amazing people. I think that a situation like this is a litmus test for those genuine people who are just going to stand beside you no matter what the situation is. I hope that other autism siblings figure out something sooner than I did. First of all, you don't have to cut ties with your family, and you also don't have to shoulder all of the responsibility. You have a right to just be a daughter, to just be a sister. And sometimes your emotions are going to get the best of you. It's a highly stressful situation. That's understandable, and it's okay. And lastly, you're not alone. You will find your people who will love on you no matter what. It might take some time, but you're going to find them. And I guess what I'd like the world to know overall is to just hear us out. It means the world to us when people listen to our story. And if you're not ready to befriend a family like ours, that's okay. But just don't pass judgment on us when one of the boys is having a meltdown in the middle of the grocery store. And we always accept questions, maybe not in the middle of said meltdown in the middle of the grocery store, but when the time is right, for sure. And just understand that our family is different. People came down really hard on my mom because she wasn't the soccer mom that was always volunteering for all the things all the time. And people just have to have patience with us that a lot of our extra time and faculties go into the well-being of the boys. Friendships are harder for us, but the ones that we do have mean the world to us. If you would like to get involved, I'd say just meet families like ours. Even YouTube and Facebook have blogs with families that have children who have autism. RCS Empowers. Hearthstone is a local advocacy group that I'm a part of that can connect you with real opportunities here in the community. And I'd say start kids young. One of the best things someone in my position can see is a parent getting involved and getting their young child involved so that kid grows up to treat people with disabilities with the respect and dignity that they deserve. In my experience, rainbows come out of the storm. And if we all do our part, then people like my brothers will have their best chance in life to live life to their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. I had the pleasure of having Leah in class, and remarkable young woman. Thank you. While serving 3 years of active duty in Germany, our next speaker traveled extensively. But there was one place that he went that left an impact on his life that he will never forget. Please welcome Brian Gensch.
When I was stationed in Germany in the Army, me and some friends of mine went to Dachau, the main prison camp that was in operation during Nazi Germany. It's a trip that would change us, impact us, and live with us for the rest of our lives. This is the entrance gate to it. It says there, "Be it mocked frei." We later came to learn that that means work makes one free. Enter the gate, and there's an area about 2 to 3 football fields in capacity. It's all dirt and gravel, and there's foundations where prisoner housing used to be. We locate where the museum is. On our way to the museum, there are a number of memorials that we stopped by to read. But there was one in particular that struck us when we came upon it. It's written in 5 different languages. It says, "Never again." There's a pedestal in front of it where folks could place their flowers or other effects to pay respects to those who suffered and died at the prison camp. Upon entering the museum, there's a large black wall with a diagram on it that has about 200 plus Nazi prison camps represented on this wall. It's all the camps that were in operation during Nazi Germany. Throughout the rest of the museum, there are exhibits such as prisoner uniforms, a whipping table, Nazi propaganda, a chart that shows the different kinds of prisoners that were at Dachau, such as military, religious, traitors, and the like. And then there's a theater in the back of this museum where they were showing a documentary of what life was like to be, what it was like to be a prisoner in Dachau. And it was a pretty horrific video to watch. It was all Nazi footage of whippings, beatings, tortures, slave labor, executions by firing squad, and hanging. We were pretty shaken up when we left the theater. We proceeded towards the back of the prison camp, But along the way, we stopped at a reconstructed prisoner housing. They couldn't keep originals up because of disease and filth, but they reconstructed one so you could see what it was like to live in one. And when you walk in, there are bunk beds, rows of bunk beds built 3 high, and the beds themselves are built to the dimensions of coffins. Made our way further back to the camp, and there's a Jewish memorial. It's one that leads underground, and it's built with no right angles except for one. No right angles meant that it was a place you could go to get away from the horrors of the camp and reality of what sits outside. The one right angle remained as a reminder of what was outside of the sanctuary, because all Nazi prison camps were built using right angles. Around the corner from this memorial was a church. We did go in, and they had pews where you could kneel, pray, pay your respects, and we did. We certainly spent some time in there. But then when coming out of there, there was a gated off area in the back of the camp that we walked through, and we saw the crematorium building. We walked in, and the first room we're in is a row of brick crematory ovens. Appeared inside a few, and it looked like there were remnants of ashes still in the ovens. Whether they were human remains, I could not say. But the next room over was a shower room. It was actually a gas chamber, but it was disguised as a shower room. Interestingly, at Dachau, they never used that shower room as a gas chamber. It was actually used as a shower. It was just all Nazi prison camps were required to have a gas chamber. So we walked outside. We were about ready to be done with our day when an older gentleman stopped us and asked us to join him under a tree that was nearby the crematorium. He asked others to join him under the tree as well. And he proceeded to tell us that he was a prisoner in this back area of the camp. He said that it was an area that was kept secret and separate from the main body of Dachau. He said it operated on a 90-day cycle. It's a train load of prisoners would come on. They would unload. They would work the crematoriums for 90 days, and then after 90 days, it would be hung on meat hooks to die. And then the cycle would continue. This man was within 30 days of his life when the camp was liberated, and he would come back to tell his story. So this trip, when we went, we were not quite 20-somethings. We were naive yet. We only knew about prison camps by way of reading about them in textbooks or by seeing them by other means through other media. To actually be there, to see what it was like, get just a small taste of it, there's no comparison. You can't get that out of a textbook. And when we were there, this is something that happened in the same century, because this was in the 90s when we paid a visit, so this was something that still happened in the same century we were living in. And so it hit us pretty hard that this was for real, and it's something that could happen again if we let it.
Thank you, Brian. Our next speaker will share the story of how falling asleep in English class during his freshman year of college led him to today and Ignite Sheboygan. Please welcome Ryan Thiel.
"75% of people are affected by the fear of public speaking, and most rate it as a stronger fear than the fear of death itself. So Seinfeld quipped that at a funeral, the average person would rather be in the casket than be up front giving the eulogy. My fears started my freshman year of college at UW Sheboygan. Any fellow wombats in the house? I had an 8 a.m. English 101 class, and the night before, I made some bad decisions involving a 30-pack of Red Dog. Needless to say, the next morning I was very tired, and the professor was going around the room having each one of us read a paragraph from the text, and he kept saying, just one more paragraph. I thought there was no way it would get to me, but the next thing I knew, I was startled awake. The professor had caught me sleeping in his class red-handed. My heart began to pound out of my chest, and as I flailed through the text, trying to find my spot, I felt all of the attention of the class now firmly focused directly on me. When I finally found my place, I started to stutter, barely making it through the paragraph. This was a humiliating experience for me, and at that point, my brain created a definition that said, public speaking is dangerous and should be avoided at all costs. From then on, anytime I was faced with the prospect of public speaking, I reacted as if I was being chased by a lion. Even if it was just the first day of class, going around the room to say your name and a little bit about yourself, I would just be overcome with these very visceral fear response, and I would think I was going to throw up, pass out, or maybe both. Eventually, I dropped out of college because of this fear. I thought I could run from it, but moving into the workforce, they have these things called meetings, and they expect you to talk and present once in a while. So I would just be on pins and needles and stressed out to the max. I thought I might have to quit my job, seriously. I didn't know what to do, so I prayed to God, and I asked that he could help me overcome this. A few months later, my HR director emailed me and said there was a Toastmasters club forming in Plymouth, and she thought it would be a pretty good idea if I attended. So I took the hint and went to the meeting. At the end of each meeting, they have what's called table topics, where they ask a random question and you give a 1 to 2 minute impromptu response. And they said, hey, Ryan, you want to give a table topic? My brain said, lion, run! And I said, no, thank you. That's not for me. But with a little encouragement, I found myself at the front of the room. I couldn't even tell you what the question was. I think I had an out-of-body experience, but they tell me I talked for 45 seconds. And when I was done, something miraculous happened. They actually applauded me. And this was a very different, positive experience that began to challenge this faulty definition I'd been carrying around for 12 years. I realized that worrying about public speaking was way worse than actually doing it. It didn't take this tremendous amount of courage either. It just took 45 seconds to get up there and have this other experience to challenge that faulty definition. So it doesn't take tremendous guts. It just takes 45 seconds, trust me. And what I realized is I could not outrun the lion because it would just get stronger. The only way to overcome it was to turn around and confront it. And I realized that the lion was within me. It wasn't all of you looking at me trying to devour me. A friend of mine, Luke, who you see in the picture, we've competed in some contests. I've given hundreds of speeches. Been promoted at work twice, actually, but Luke was the one that introduced me to Ignite Sheboygan. He spoke at the December event, so I thought I'd come and check it out and see what this was all about. The mission of Ignite is to try to weave together this thick fabric of community through the sharing of stories and ideas, and that resonated with me and my values. But what I'm most passionate about is helping the 75% that are afraid and silenced by the fear and might never share their story, because that leaves us with this incomplete picture if we only hear 25% of the stories. So I have found that it's often those that are afraid to speak that hold the stories that need to be heard the most. And your story could hold the key to someone else's prison. So I beg you, don't be afraid to share your story. You don't know who you might inspire. So I ask you tonight, what's your story? And are you willing to share it? Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Ryan is not only a member of our committee, he's our leader. He's the one that's running our committee. So thank you. Nice job, man. As we conclude tonight, please let me thank the folks at WSCS for videotaping and putting our videos on. Thank you, thank you. So when you go to our website, you can check out some of the videos. I would also like to thank Nia and Rick and Leah and Brian and Ryan for doing some wonderful jobs tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you to Three Sheeps. James, thank you very much. We love this place. We love it here. Thank you. And lastly, thank you to all of you for coming, spreading the word, having fun, drinking beer, and just having a great time tonight. Thank you. Good night. October 16th.